Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we start the video, I just want to do the YouTube thing and tell you guys to subscribe, comment, give me a thumbs up. You know, it helps me, so I appreciate that. Anyway, with that being said, I'm just going to jump right into the video. And this video in particular has been, I would say, a pretty requested topic. And that is just me showing you my hotkeys, my control groups, pretty much how I interact with the game in general on a more technical level. And I can understand why it's requested, and just because, well, from my point of view, it's important for you guys to see how I interact with the game. Just because there are important aspects of how I interact with the game that makes it easier for me, and I want to show you guys. Yeah, I want to show you guys what helps me. And yeah, with all of that being said, there's not that many things that I do differently from just like the base. Like if you were to give someone the standard layout of the game, I would probably change like 5 things, which in my opinion are very important things, but it's not too complicated is what I'm trying to get at. All right. So I'm going to go through each section, but I've only changed like 5 things. So again, it's only going to be like one in each topic, and it's not going to be too complicated. All right, so the first thing is I have cancel last item in production queue binded to X. This is not normally binded to X. I changed it because I really value the simplicity in being able to adjust my macro easily. And I'll give you an example. Let's say I have 10 villages in queue. I can press X 9 times and cancel 9 villages, right? And that allows me to free up 450 food resources, right? And adjust that into units or do something else, etc. And I do that with every single thing. I do that with units, I do that with villagers, I do that with technologies. This hotkey for me is very valuable. Oops, I don't want to change anything. No, that's a mistake. I just gotta fix that before we move on. Okay, W. There we go. Alright, so that's the only thing in game. Everything else is the same. I keep my mini-map setting on the normal setting, I think, like medium. So there's small, medium, large. I keep it on medium. Unit selection. So I haven't changed any of the unit selections. I know some people use select all units on screen. That's not something that I have picked up yet. Nothing here as well. So select all idle villages. I consider select all idle villages a core aspect of one of the things I've changed in the game. Because for me, being able to easily access idle villages on the map is extremely valuable. And yeah, I use this in every aspect of the game. When I'm doing a fight, when I'm macroing, when I'm aging up, when I'm like, no matter what is going on, I am trying to macro as efficiently as possible. And select all idle villages is, I want to say, the core aspect allowing me to do that efficiently. And I'll show you later on how I use this precisely, but I do recommend highly that you guys bind this to something important, something easy to access, because it is important. I think I changed cycle through religious units to something, but I don't typically use that all that much. Again, I'm trying to show you guys what I use often and every single game all the time. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that you can use in the game that is probably helpful, but I'm just trying to show you as efficiently as possible what is the main aspects of helping me win games in general. So we're just going to ignore everything else and just get to those really, really important stuff. Another one, select all military. So, I know this is kind of controversial. Some people think this is really bad. I think it's okay. I think it's useful. Um, Obviously not in all circumstances. I have 3 military control groups. Now, if I have 3 military control groups, if I'm using all armies hotkey, then it kind of nullifies the point of that a little bit. But the purpose of select all military is just to kind of centralize my army in a location if I need to do that. I don't want to get too much into this now, but I'll show you guys later on how I use this in a more efficient way. It's not like I'm smashing this button all the time, is my point. Alright, and that's about it for the hotkeys on unit selection. Select all military, select all idle villagers is the most important stuff for me. Alright, building selection. I'm not sure I use any building selections. Nope, I don't use anything. And control groups. So for control groups, the only thing I'd say is really, really important to my aspect of the game is removing selected units from all control groups. If I wasn't using this consistently, I would have a really hard time adjusting my control groups very quickly with like in the game. Because I have this binded, and this is something I use every single game, all the time, at the start of the game, 5 minutes into the game, 10 minutes, like, you get my point. Like, every single time I'm using a control group, I'm using this often. Because it allows me to adjust and change my control groups easily and without too many mistakes, I find. And I'll show you guys this in game, but I highly recommend that you get used to using this because it really makes it a lot easier for you to adjust your control groups in the game. Alright, I think that's about it. Again, I haven't really changed too many things, but I think keeping things simple is probably the best way to go about things. And then once you kind of, I want to say adjusted, once you kind of feel comfortable with using, I guess, my control groups, you can maybe advance yourself a little bit more if you feel that it's necessary, right? Alright, so I'm just gonna go through everything in the game because I think it's important to show you how I'm using all this stuff in real time. So I have 7 control groups in general that I keep binded, 1 to 7, and I'm gonna show you guys all of those. I have to get to Castle Age, so we're not gonna have those instantly, but I'm going to show you that in a bit here. Now I usually keep my control groups 1 to 3 for military, 4 is production, 5 is TC, 6 is monastery, and 7 is market. So with that being said, I'm just going to drop down a bunch of production buildings so you guys get the point, and we're going to age up to age 3 as well. So I like to keep my scout on number 3. I keep him on 1 in the early game as well, but usually I keep him on 3 mostly. Because having a scout on a control group is very, very important, at least in Dark Age and Feudal Age, I find. You can see that my raiding units, my knights are usually on 1, and I keep my scout on 3 at least in Feudal Age. Which means I have 2 army control groups left over for my knights, my archers, my spearmen. And let's talk about my hotkeys that I've changed now, while we wait for my DC to build up a little bit here, my units to build up a little bit. So, let's talk about idle villagers first, and this is one of the important ones that I mentioned earlier, right? Let's say I have, I'm doing whatever on the map, and I have a bunch of idle villagers like this. First of all, you're not going to be looking at your base. So let's say I'm looking at my knights, because I'm trying to raid. Oh, and I realize I have 11 idle villagers. Well, the easiest thing to do would just be to hit your idle villager key, which is what I do. So that's my military key. Hit your idle villager key, and it brings up 11 villagers at a time, and that includes every single idle villager that you have, which is not always efficient because let's say you have, you know, idle villagers over here. The point is, let's say you have idle villagers all over the place. You don't want to bring them all together, you know, to a lumber camp because some have to walk farther than others. So what I like to do is I like to hit my idle villager key, box the ones that I can see, and put them on a resource. And then you can see that I still have 4 more. Hit it again, box the ones, put them on a resource, hit it again, box this guy, and put him on a resource. Right? That way, you are efficient with your villagers, you're fast with making sure they're not idle, right? And yeah, you're not bringing them all over to one location, even though they're halfway across the map, right? So my idle villager hotkey is essential to macroing efficiently, and I really recommend that you guys use that. Let's talk about canceling the last item in queue, because that is something I also brought up earlier. So again, let's say you're fighting. You know, you have one control group here, you have one control group here. But, you know, you want to macro a little bit more efficiently while you're on the map. So what you can do is just hit your cancel last item in queue, and then you free up some resources for something else. Free up some villager resources for something else. Maybe you want more knights, etc. You want more archers, etc. Like, it just allows you to be macroing while doing other things on the map. Because I'm not even looking at my base, right? Like, but I'm macroing at the same time, which is important to min-max in this game. So this is something that's a little bit more advanced, I want to say. But for me, it's important to use every single game. Alright, so let's talk about all military. The all military hotkey key, right? Now, this one is a little bit more complicated to... explain to you guys because it has multiple purposes, but the main purpose I would say is... Let's say I have... Let's say I have, in a normal game, let's say I have one horseman going to his berries. Say I have one knight protecting his gold, right? But most of my army, I want to attack. Most of my army, I want to just, like, run into his base. Now, again, this is something I don't... If you feel comfortable using your army in other ways, you don't have to do this, but what I like to do sometimes, and this is just sometimes, is all military hotkey, bring all my units together and just make a big attack. And I'm sure there's going to be some people who are going to say this isn't efficient, you shouldn't be doing this, and I mean, maybe not, but sometimes I like to do this, okay? I like to all military hotkey and just, like, move into his base, and because I know that I had units on these areas of the map, I just go back to them and just, you know, just make sure that they're where they were before. And in that way, all my units are now heading towards the area I want, except for these units, right? So, maybe not, like, the most efficient thing you could be doing in a game, but I find that sometimes it can be helpful to gather all your units together in this kind of way. Alright, I think we covered idle villages, we covered all military, we covered cancel last item in queue. Oh yeah, we have to cover removing units from a control group. Yeah, after we kill these spearmen, we're gonna do that. The spearmen need to die first, of course. Okay, they were trading. Pick W. Alright, so let's say you have all of your units in a control group. I typically keep all of my units in a main army control group number 2. But I want to send these knights to go raid. I don't want them to be in my big army anymore because I want to raid this base, right? Well, I could put them to control group number 1, which is my raiding control group, but they'd still be attached to number 2, right? Which doesn't make sense. Like, I want them to be separate. So what you need to do, and what I do, is I remove them from all control groups using my hotkey, and then I assign them to number 1. This way, they're no longer assigned to control group 2, they're assigned to their own control group, and you can do whatever you want with them. Which is very helpful. Another situation where it's helpful is, let's say I want to have most of my knights with my main army, and just send a few knights to raid. Well, I do want to attack. Another situation where it's helpful is, let's say I want to control my knights individually from my archers once I take the fight. And what I'm trying to tell you guys is, I want to keep them in control group 2 so that I'm moving them within the same army, but when I take the engagement, I don't want to control my knights within the same control group as my archers, and I'll show you that now. You guys can see how I use either villager as well. So this is my point, right? I want to keep my knights in my main army, but I don't want to keep them in the same control group because I want to micro my archers individually. And what I did is I just removed them from the control group 2. And I can micro my archers very easily. But I can still keep my knights around. Or I can send them wherever, you know? Because in my experience, it's very important to micro archers and knights individually within a big fight. But with that being said, I still wanted to bring my knights with my big army, because it's important to keep the army together, right? So there's lots of case uses for this hotkey in particular, but it's invaluable to me that it's easy for me to adjust my control groups this way, right? I want to be able to easily adjust my units during a fight, and this hotkey allows me to do that. Alright, so what else can we show you guys? I think that pretty much covers the hotkeys I've changed. I do want to show you guys one other thing. Now, this isn't a big deal by any means, but I just want to show you guys how I use my army control groups in general, because it just gives you another perspective on how to use control groups. Now, I'm gonna pretty much break it down for you guys in 3 categories. One is the category where I'm just taking a really big fight, and it doesn't show this in the numbers, but let's say I have 50 archers, 50 knights, right? Well, in that case, it's a big enough fight that... there's enough resources in the fight that I want to have my knights and my archers in a separate control group. Because I want to be able to min-max 50 knights and 50 archers as much as possible, right? I want to have as good micro as possible in a really big fight. So in that case, I'll have my knights on a different hotkey, and I'll have my archers on a different hotkey. So this is like my standard setup in big fights, right? Alright, so let's change the setup a little bit. Let's say something else is happening. Let's say my opponent is playing really defensive. He has walls, he has towers, he has... he has everything. Alright, well, in this case, I want to do a lot of harassing. And I don't really need a big army together because he's playing so defensive. He doesn't really have that army advantage to move around the map. He's just playing a really, really tight game. So we want to separate our army into two big groups. And how I usually do that is I just keep half my army on one, half my army on two, and I'll just send them around the map trying to get damage done. Now, what I like to do in this situation is keep... Okay, that's... that's not a good situation, but what I like to do is separate my army into very equal amounts of units. So I have like 4 knights here, I have 4 knights here, I have 4 archers here, I have 4 archers here. And this makes it harder for my opponent to adjust to my unit compositions, right? Because let's say I have knights and archers on one group, and knights and archers on the other group. Well, then they can't just send spearmen to deal with my knights, right? Then they need to send spearmen knights to deal with my army. And the point that I'm trying to get across is that if I split my units up into more diverse compositions, they can't just send one unit type to deal with that, right? They need to send multiple unit types to deal with that army, which is more difficult for your opponent, and usually you get more damage done because it's more difficult for your opponent. Alright, so that's the second case. The first case obviously was a big fight. The second case is I want to harass my opponent. And the third case is very similar to the second case, but it's more of like an attacking stance and a defensive stance. In that case, I like to have, again, 2 separate armies, my attacking army and my defending army. But the noticeable difference in this case is that my defending army and my attacking army, one is in my base and one is in their base. And the purpose of this is that it allows me to easily switch between my base and their base. This situation is really good if you are kind of in like a base trade scenario. Let's say your opponent has 50 knights in your base and you have 50 knights in their base. It's important to be consistently switching between those two armies to be able to maximize the damage that you do against your opponent and minimize the damage that they do against you, right? Because you need to react ASAP in these situations. And that's essentially the third case I want to show you guys. So that's my hotkeys, that's my control groups. This is everything I changed and how I interact with the game. Hopefully you guys got a good understanding of the things I've changed and how I utilize them within the game. It's a little bit difficult to show you guys the ins and outs all together because, you know, there's a lot of case scenarios and I can't really exactly do it in a multiplayer game. I kind of have to do it against an AI, which makes it a little bit more, I want to say nuanced, but the point I'm trying to come across is you kind of have to explore this stuff on your own time in your own games for you to really see the value in it. It's hard to show you the value in a game against an AI, right? With all that being said, guys, again, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.